It was October of 1998, when the internet still felt like a map missing most of its compass roses. In a cramped dorm room in West Hall, Alex sat cross-legged on a sagging futon, lit by the glow of a chunky CRT monitor. His desk was a monument to indecision, pizza boxes stacked like miniature skyscrapers, a tangle of cables braided with exam notes, and the thrift store desk lamp that refused to point where he needed it. Outside, the quad was quiet. Inside, hundreds of students were tapping on keyboards like miners chipping at an invisible seam. Alex was majoring in computer science, but felt more like a self-taught immigrant in a half-finished country. Between classes, he wandered forums, scavenged tutorials, and treated view source like a sacred text. He didn't know what he was building toward, only that the digital world had a new frontier feeling rough, hopeful, open. He found the registrar's website by accident. A banner promised cheap domains, and boredom did the rest. He typed names into the search box, the way people toss stones into a lake, listening for a satisfying plunk. Most were taken. Then he tried something short, a little strange, almost futuristic in its terseness, TrumX. The page stalled. Then, miraculously, it returned a green check. Available. $1. He stared at the screen, then the balance in his checking account, then the screen again. He had never owned anything intangible that felt this real. He clicked buy now with a mix of mischief and awe. A confirmation page unfurled, stamped with the sentence, "You now own TrumX.com." The thrill was disproportionate to the cost. He didn't brag in chat rooms or tell his roommate. Instead, he minimized the window and stared at the desktop wallpaper, a pixelated photo of a skyline that felt more like a destiny than a city. He had no plan. He had a name. For the first time, that felt like enough. Days passed in the easy tyranny of the semester. Syntax errors, and cafeteria food, midterms and midnight caffeine. Sometimes he opened a text editor and sketched a homepage for TrumX, a placeholder, a promise. Other times he forgot it existed at all. The email arrived 2 weeks later. Subject: offer for TrumX.com. The sender was a small web agency he'd never heard of. They liked the name. They were building a project. Could they buy it for $50? $50, in that moment, was not abstraction. It was groceries and bus fare, a new pair of headphones, 3 pizzas that didn't taste like cardboard. He hovered over reply. He imagined a counteroffer, a number that would sound clever without sounding greedy. He imagined the agency laughing and buying something else. He imagined overdraft fees. He imagined being sensible. He wrote back, "Sure, 50 works. Let me know the transfer steps." The money landed with a satisfying thunk in his account. He bought a used C++ book from the campus store and did a decent coffees. He told himself it was a win. $1 into 50. Clean and without drama. Maybe this was what being an adult felt like, translating whim into utility and moving on. That night he pulled up a blank page and typed TrumX in a big sans serif font, just to see the word, and then he closed it. He slept like someone who had solved a small riddle. In the morning, the riddle no longer felt solved. It felt discarded. The world lurched forward. Ethernet replaced the shriek of dial-up. Alex graduated and traded the dorm for an apartment with squeaky floors and an ambitious landlord. He took a junior role at a company whose mission statement used the word synergy unironically. He learned to write code inside deadlines, to debug legacy systems without screaming, to survive meetings that should have been emails. On a rainy Thursday, year 2005, he was balancing a styrofoam cup and a stack of bug reports when a headline slid across his RSS reader like a shark under a glass boat. TrumX.com sells for $2.4 million. He did not spill the coffee. He set it down carefully, as if gravity had negotiated a new contract. He clicked the link. The article was short and brisk. A speculative purchase, a bidding war, a final price that made him feel both small and very awake. His old $50 transfer, a neat little wire echoed somewhere in the back of his skull. He read the number again, even though numbers do not change under scrutiny. He tried to laugh, He succeeded at exhaling in a way that made the person in the next cube ask, he was okay. He was okay. That was the worst part. Life did not break in half. He still had a job and rent and a coffee that had cooled only slightly. It wasn't a tragedy. It was a mirror. On the train home, his mind staged alternate histories. In one, he kept the domain and ignored every offer until the check arrived with more zeros than his student did. In another, he built something on TrumX, a forum, a game, a service, and it grew into a thing people actually used. In yet another, he let it rot for a decade and finally let it lapse on a Tuesday while he was stuck in traffic. He got off to stops early and walked. The air smelled like wet concrete and the kind of regret that doesn't make noise. He told himself a story he could live with. This was a lesson, not a wound. He would turn it into a practice. Practice began in a cheap notebook with a cover that looked like a tablecloth. He wrote, "What did I miss?" Not, "Why was I dumb?" Not, "Who took what should have been mine?" Those questions might be cathartic, but they are not useful. He wrote, "What did I miss?" He missed patience. He missed curiosity. He missed the space between a first offer and a fair price. He had treated a spark like a coin. He had not given it oxygen. He made a simple rule: no more impulsive sales. If he acquired something that felt rare, an asset, a name, an idea, he would give it time to either bloom or prove itself ordinary. He would hold through the fidgets. He also made a different rule: build. Names are empty without gravity. A domain with a blank page is a sign in the desert. He would give his signs towns to point to. He began to acquire on purpose, not in a frenzy, not to hoard, but to learn. $10 a week was his budget, less than he spent on lunch, a number that could sting without drawing blood. He wandered lists of expiring domains, the way some people browse thrift stores, touching the fabric of each word, checking seams. He bought ones that stirred a particular itch, a phrase that sounded like a magazine, a two-syllable blend that could be an app, a name that tasted like a boutique coffee shop, and the data tool at the same time. He built tiny landing pages. Some were clean and informative, some were experiments in tone, some were jokes he was a little too proud of. He learned that names with hard consonants got more clicks, that hyphens were attacks, that the right subhead could triple email signups. He learned how to say no to offers that felt like consolation prizes. He made a mistake every third week. He misread a trend or lost a bidding war on something he should have chased. He bought a name that sounded brilliant at 2 a.m. and embarrassing at noon. He kept records of those too, because bad taste is valuable when you can label it. He met people on forums, at meetups with bad coffee, in email threads that turned into friendships. A woman named Priya who had a knack for naming things that made investors lean forward. A guy named Ben who could predict auction outcomes like a weather forecaster who actually liked weather. A designer named Jules who could turn 3 letters into a logo that looked inevitable. Together they taught each other the difference between unique and merely weird, between minimal and starving, between holding and hiding. They shared horror stories of perfect names parked for a decade until they expired and were immediately turned into something perfect by someone else. They shared small wins, a $15 purchase that sold for $150, a $100 risk that turned into $4,000 after a year of slow nurture. They shared the private joy of catching a thing that wanted to be caught. Alex's portfolio grew to 100 names, then 140. He said no to dozens of early offers. Saying no did not become easier, it became familiar. He developed rituals for the anxiety, a walk without his phone, a list of reasons attached to every decision, a friend he called who was allergic to drama and generous with perspective. Work changed too. He stayed at his day job, got better at it, moved from writing code to shaping products. He learned to translate between engineers and executives, between will and budget, between enthusiasm and calendar. The lesson of TrumX bled into everything: patience and building, holding and adding value, not mistaking motion for progress or silence for failure. 8 years after the headline that had reorganized his bloodstream, Alex found himself in a conference ballroom with bad carpeting and excellent Wi-Fi. It was a naming and branding event, the kind of place where people argued about the ethics of invented vowels. He didn't expect to recognize anyone. He did. The man who had first offered him $50 for TrumX was now on a panel, hair a little thinner, confidence carbonated. After the session, Alex waited, palms not sweating but remembering how. He introduced himself. The man stared for half a second and then laughed in a way that was not unkind. "You made your choice," the man said. "So did we. We were all guessing." They talked for 20 minutes about probabilities, about timing, about how luck looks suspiciously like preparation and stubbornness in good lighting. The man complimented the names in Alex's portfolio and then said, "And sometimes you need a lightning strike." Alex agreed. The part he didn't say was that he no longer wanted lightning to be the whole plan. On the train back, he wrote another note in his notebook. "I don't regret the $50. I regret the speed." He underlined speed. Then he added something new. "I am not the same person who sold." That mattered. Life kept not being dramatic. That is its secret gift. You rarely get a single day where everything swivels. You get 1,000 days that each tilt a degree. And one morning you realize the horizon moved. He made a small studio space out of a spare room. He hung a whiteboard, but used it sparingly. He put the notebook on a shelf and began to keep his notes in a simple text file name practice. He wrote about the names that landed and the ones that taught him humility. He wrote about building quick sites that actually helped people, tools that calculated something useful, directories that gathered what was scattered, pages that explained jargon without condescension. He wrote about offers he turned down and the reasons he could sleep afterward. Occasionally he thought about TrumX without flinching. He liked that it existed. He liked that it proved possibility. He liked that the version of him who sold for $50 was real and forgivable. He didn't measure his current decisions against that number anymore. He measured them against his rules. He learned to exit carefully. A name that fit a buyer's vision, a product with organic traction, a project that wanted a steward with more time than he had. He let those go at prices that respected both sides. He learned to hold through dry seasons without inventing emergencies. He learned the power of small compounding, tiny improvements that accumulate like interest in a patient account. A decade after that RSS headline, Alex sat with his niece at a kitchen table, covered in construction paper. She asked what he did for work. He tried to explain naming and building, holding and selling, regret and revision. She cut a circle out of red paper and said, "So you find good words and make them mean more." He laughed. Exactly. At night, he sometimes opened the registrar and typed names with that old feeling of tossing pebbles. Most came back taken. Occasionally, a green check appeared, and his chest lifted, not with greed, but with wonder. A new spark, a new sign in the desert. He registered it. He sketched a plan. He asked himself the questions he had learned to ask. What can I build here? Who would this help? How long am I willing to wait? He didn't chase the feeling of a $2.4 million headline anymore. He chased the feeling of doing the next right thing and then the next. He learned that satisfaction is not a jackpot, it's a rhythm. If this sounds simple, it was not. There were years where everything he touched felt slightly off, where buyers ghosted, where a site he loved did not find its people. There were mornings when he wondered if he was just a collector with better stories. On those mornings, he did the smallest task in front of him, fixed a broken link, answered an email with kindness, renamed a product to something truer, and let momentum rebuild itself, like a shy animal returning to an outstretched hand. He kept the first notebook with the tablecloth cover. Sometimes he took it down and reread the early entries, the ones where his handwriting leaned forward like it was trying to arrive before he did. He liked the sentence that started the whole turn. What did I miss? He liked, even more, the sentences that came after it. He liked that the question never fully closed. He came to believe that the difference between a loss and a lesson is what you build next. He built small things, often. He built habits that could survive bad days. He built trust with people who told him the truth. He built a life where lightning, if it struck, would find a roof that didn't leak. And whenever someone asked about TrumX at parties, as they inevitably did, once the story leaked into the friend network, he told it straight, without performative humility or secret grief. He ended the story the same way every time, with a smile that had real weight behind it. It cost me $0.399950 to learn patience, worth every penny. Moral opportunities almost never look like opportunities when they first arrive. They show up as a $1 checkout page at 2 a.m. A half-formed idea, a quiet nudge that feels too small to matter. The easy impulse is to trade them for quick comfort, the first offer, the immediate relief, the story we can tell ourselves about being practical. But long-term value belongs to those willing to hold, to build, and to learn while they wait. Patience isn't passive, it's an active posture. It asks, what could this become if I give it time and purpose? Not every spark turns into a wildfire, and not every name becomes a fortune. That's fine. The point isn't to hoard possibilities, it's to cultivate them. Measure your choices not against someone else's lucky headline, but against your own principles. If you can turn regret into practice, and practice into rhythm, you won't need lightning to strike to feel like you've won.